Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to an episode of my F1 2020 My Team Career Mode, episode number 91 today for the British Grand Prix in Season 5. If you guys did miss the previous one, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one at the Austrian Grand Prix. That was a very, very decent episode for us, obviously kind of obvious by the title of that, and spoiler alert if you haven't seen it already, of course, after 30 long episodes, we are finally able to get that W, get that dub, and get that first place and a race win once again. It's been a long while. Singapore Season 3, and it felt very, very good, especially in that style. You know, it was a big fight versus this very man, Pierre Gasly, and our other rival, Charles Leclerc. Big fight, but we managed to pull it through for a 1-3 in the end with Gasly in third place. We do re-sign our teammate, of course. It's a no-brainer, of course. He's been doing insane, and so far he's actually had the measure of us most of this season, but we're now starting to punch back a little bit, and we lead the championship by one measly point. So it is very, very close at the top, and that's just us two. Then you've got the rest of the gang, obviously a little bit further back in the standings now after that win of ours and the third place for Gasly, but still not that far away, and everyone is very, very close, you know, in that kind of a pack just behind us with Leclerc, you know, Sainz doing so well, having yet got a win in this Grand Prix. Sainz and Leclerc yet to win, and they're actually P4 and 5 in the championship, so they're doing a massively decent job there to be just behind Lance Stroll in third place, obviously with 3 wins to his name this season. Verstappen in the Mercedes then in P6 doing a decent job from flying the flag kind of solo with Hamilton. Only the first time really last episode scored well. I mean the 10 points he's got so far this season were all from last episode, so maybe this is the start of maybe Hamilton starting to score some points again, and maybe that will help actually Mercedes in the title fight in the Constructors' battle to get Mercedes a little bit farther up the order to fight the likes of McLaren and Racing Point, who've done a much better job obviously of scoring points more consistently. But for us then, going into this one off the back of a race win, it is going to be a tougher time. Britain is a very tough race on this year's game. The AI are very, very quick and consistent around here, and just generally it's been a bit of a bogey circuit for us as of late. You know, we've not been on a podium. I don't actually, have we actually even been on a podium at a home Grand Prix? I don't think we actually have, or if I have, it's been very unmemorable. We definitely haven't been anywhere near to a win at our home race, so very much not exactly happy hunting ground for us at the home Grand Prix, but we're going to see how it goes, and hopefully with the momentum of a race, when you like to say, we can try and bring that through, and hopefully kind of turn the fortunes around in a way. But we have to try and do the job firstly on Saturday in qualifying, but it's going to be interesting. There's forecasts for some rain to come into this weekend yet again, like we saw at Austria. There's going to be some rain on Saturday at the end of the qualifying session, so at the moment it's all bone dry. Very sunny indeed in Q1, and we're looking decent P2 there, although Norris, I don't know what went on with him, but he just pulled out a lap time that was so much better than any of us, because we're ahead of most people, but there's 9/10 to Stroll there. And then we cut to Q2, and it's a completely different story. It's so overcast now, there's plenty of water on track, and it's time for the intermediate, so a massive switch in fortune. So very, you know, how typical, very British of the British Grand Prix here to switch the weather so quickly from Q1 to Q2, and so it's a bit nerve-wracking in terms of now I know I'm on the back foot. We're not as good as we are in the dry in general in these kind of conditions, so having to go for 2 consecutive laps this is, or at least I tried to basically, but I actually didn't notice that I didn't actually have enough fuel. So as I've gained about 3/10 here, 4/10 through the first sector alone through Village. I was so happy about that, but on the exit I kind of then noticed that and forgot that I don't have enough fuel, so we have to back out of that because I have only 0.2 of fuel left, so I'm not going to make it basically. So we have to go for another flyer at the end of the session then and refuel that, and thankfully we do still gain time on that second kind of full run, but it would have been kind of a little bit easier, I feel like, doing it on a consecutive lap, because you're going straight away, you have that kind of muscle memory of the kind of throttle and whatnot, but we still improve on that second lap time nonetheless at the end of the session, not by a huge amount, and we're still a little bit iffy compared to others, but we're still going to make it through into the top 10 shootout. But P8, a little bit disappointing compared to where our teammate is and also where others are. Giovinazzi doing a great job in the Ferrari, way up in first place, and the Racing Points both knocked out in Q2. Very, very surprising. They were very decent in qualifying Austria. Obviously, they've been very, very quick, especially in the last few episodes. And in the rain, I mean, Stroll looked so quick. Remember the Canadian Grand Prix in wet conditions. So both racing points out. Surprised, to say the least. So let's see how this top 10 shootout goes. I really can't call it because it looks like Red Bull have now picked up the pace again. Don't know where McLaren really stand. Mercedes have been good in these conditions, and it's going to be another spanner in the works that it gets even wetter into Q3 because we go from the intermediates onto the full wet conditions. So even more of a struggle now for us maybe to try and navigate this basically. It's not as wet as it was in Canada. Yet again, not massive spray, but still enough standing water to having to use those blue wall full wet tyres. The ride height really gets put up now with this tread of tyres, and a bit of a lock up there going wide in the last corner, trying to rotate this car through, but it's just very, very sluggish now to try and get this the kind of weight shift from left to right there through that final chicane, and we cross the line, and it's a very poor lap time. P9 only. We're now in the last 30 seconds of this qualifying session, and this is it, the only final lap we've got. And at the moment, we're only getting about 3 to 4 tenths there on the exit of Luffield. It's a decent amount of time, but is it going to be enough? I don't think so. I think we need to gain a lot of time because that's how far off the pace we were in that first lap. We come through to the last few corners. We're gaining nearly 1.2 seconds here. This is a massive amount of time to gain on a second lap. 1.211 seconds gained on that second run, and yet it's still only P9. Which is really bonkers to gain that much time and not go forwards because everyone else is doing so much better. And our teammate Gasly, shock horror, is doing the business. He's up there on the front row. Not quite a pole position. Verstappen once again showing how good of a driver he can be, especially in the wet conditions, to be on pole position in the Mercedes car whilst his teammate Hamilton is down in P9. And it's the same thing really with Gasly versus me. Then it's a kind of bit more of a stable performance for the Ferraris, both kind of up there at P3 and P6 with Giovinazzi lagging behind a little bit there. Lando Norris doing the job, flying the flag from McLaren solo up in P4. And then Red Bull, I expected them to be a little bit quicker actually, especially in these conditions now. So we'll see how the race pace is. And then Sergio Perez does a pretty decent job for AlphaTauri to actually just make it through to the top 10 shootout. But for us from P9, we've got a bit of a job to do now. We're definitely not in the same place we were at Austria. And I know it's going to be a harder job in the race as well, even in the dry, because this circuit is just very difficult. The AI are very strong around here. So I guess we just try and do the best job we can, and hopefully we have an easier time than we did in Q3 there.
Great Britain then, one of only 2 countries to have held a Grand Prix in every single year of the Formula One World Championship. And the circuit extends that record further for today's Grand Prix. Straddling the border of Northamptonshire and Buckinghamshire, the 18 corners of the Silverstone circuit form the 3.6-mile beating heart of Formula One. It's been reinvented over the years, with Turn 1 now the fast right-hander of Abbey, but the magic of racing is as strong here as it's ever been. Alongside me once again for coverage of today's race, it's none other than the great Anthony Davidson. Let's start with Racing Point. What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within that team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do, and that's definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he starts from pole position. And it's Pierre Gasly in P2. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Leclerc, Norris, Carlos Sainz, and Giovinazzi, Ricciardo, Hamilton, the owner driver, and Sergio Perez, Ocon, Bottas, Lance Stroll, and Kvyat, Matsushita, Albon, George Russell, and Nicholas Latifi, De Vries, Aitken, Schumacher. They've taken a grid penalty, and Kevin Magnussen fills the last spot on the grid. Now, it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track.
Alright, so we're on the grid. Unfortunately, no engine penalties for anyone ahead of us to help us out. So we are indeed still P9 on this grid. And unfortunately also, strategy-wise, because of the tyre wear levels being so low now in Season 5, it's a pretty straightforward one-stop. I assume everyone will be doing soft to mediums. There may be a few people on hard tyres. Depends on really how that internal carcass temperature is, of course, in terms of that soft compound. It could be an issue for some, so we'll just see about that. But apart from that, it's just going to be flat-out racing, basically, and just seeing hopefully we have a bit more race pace in the dry than we showed in Q3 in the full wet conditions. But here we go then to 5 red lights to our home Grand Prix, the British Grand Prix. 4 lights are out and we're underway, and it's actually a very good start. So much so that we almost get pinned in on the left, trying to go around the outside of Ricciardo into turn 1. Ricciardo is half spun. We take avoiding action, and that was Ricciardo spinning on Giovinazzi's rear end. We've taken the escape road and come back in a safe place at Village, but we've got an illegal overtake apparently, and Hamilton now gets past us because it's on Ricciardo yet again for the second time this season. The FIA want to stand. Oh my! And we've been spun round by Daniel Ricciardo. I was going to say for the second time this season, the first time being at Canada, the FIA strangely tell us to give back an illegal overtake on Ricciardo. This time, it's even more of a calamity, because in doing so, Ricciardo span us round. It was a very tight left-hander there on the kind of exit to the straight down towards the field. This is the onboard from Ricciardo, half spin, so he didn't get fully spun out, so he's kept going, but obviously I took the exit on the left to avoid him. I came back as safe as I could on track. And to my surprise, I have to give up the place to Ricciardo, but that also means I give up 2 places to Hamilton. And then whilst doing that, Ricciardo, just with a big old pinch there, hardly any contact for him or feeling for him on board, which is even more frustrating in terms of for him, it didn't really matter that much, but just such an awkward, tight angle there, and just, it's just so unfortunate the way the tyre clips his rear left and the side pod, and we're spun round for the second time ever at the British Grand Prix, because remember, I think it was season 2, wasn't it? We got spun round at the beginning as well, so it really is our bogey circuit, Silverstone, so we're stone dead last and trying to make up the difference now. Meanwhile, the lead is still Max Verstappen in the Mercedes car from Gasly, our teammate. Then you've got Lando Norris, I think that is, in the McLaren, starting fast in 3rd place ahead of Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, and then Giovinazzi, the man who's half spun out down Ricciardo. Ricciardo continues on. I don't know if he has any damage off that contact with Giovinazzi. I would kind of hope so for our sake in terms of karma, because if he came off out of that unscathed, that would be pretty annoying for us. But meanwhile, we watch this insane battle going on between Leclerc and Sainz as Leclerc nearly dive bombs and re-overtakes Sainz on the inside of the chicane there, as we now chase after and narrowly overtake Schumacher there, who's got some issues in Max Beckett. So that could have been a calamity actually, 1 inch further left, and I would have been out the Grand Prix there because we were so close to making contact with the young German. But yeah, we're far off now from these guys, the race leaders, even the mid-pack here ahead of us. So the likes of the Racing Point cars recovering after being knocked out in Q2. You've got, I think that's Lance Stroll tucked up behind Esteban Ocon, then that long train with the Alpine cars, and then you've also got Albon, the other Racing Point car, in the mix there. And here we are now finally catching up to the tail end of that last pack, which is tail-end by Kevin Magnussen, De Vries there in the other Williams car, looking to overtake with ERS, and DRS will be activated the next lap. We should have enough overspeed here, even with the ERS there. Rich Mix going, diving around the outside up into P19, but still so long to go. And even after we make these kind of moves, we've got a few, a few 4 cars ahead of us. Then there's a few gaps to actually close up then, so it's going to be a bit of a long Grand Prix. And the thing is, these cars, it's fine. We're kind of flying through these cars because, you know, the Haas, the Williams, the Alfa Romeo on the R&D chart, they're so far off. But remember, after those 3 teams, I should say, the rest of the teams are all very close on the R&D chart. We're all very equalized. So it's not going to be easy to fly through the rest of these guys. It's plain sailing at the moment. It's actually quite fun to just fly through and fly past these guys. We get De Vries there and Aiken in one foul swoop in about half a lap's worth there on lap number 2. But now, once we get past Latifi, then you've got Albon, and we know how quick that Racing Point car is, and the cars ahead of him, the Alpine, also quite quick at times. And then you've just got McLaren, Ferrari, Red Bull, all of those guys, mega quick. It's going to be tough to actually recover in this race because of the fuel spread being so close. Like now, from this point onwards, in Season 5 onwards, unless we get a regulation change, if there's any calamities for any of us in any of these races, it's so hard to come back through the pack because the pack is so tight now and it's so competitive. So we get the move easily done on Latifi there. Big dive bomb into Stoke, and we got Mashasita ahead of us, who's been overtaken by Albon there, so we can maybe hopefully catch up the Alpine in pretty due course. But then we're going to find it tough from P15 upwards. It's going to be a battle just to get into the last points paying position. So this is very much damage limitation here today, as meanwhile we watch on, and this is a fight for P3. This is Lando Norris coming back at Carlos Sainz, so we've missed the overtake, but Sainz has gone and overtaken Lando Norris, because remember, Norris was in third place previously, and so now these two are having a mega scrap there. Meanwhile, Gasly keeps Verstappen honest for P1 in that fight for him in P2, but these guys are still going on for this fight for P3, and Leclerc is going to come in. It's going to be 3 wide into turn 1. Mega stuff there. Red Bull v McLaren v Ferrari, and Leclerc is the one who's the bravest of them all, goes down the inside of both of them and actually gets the job done into Village, and Leclerc is up into P3, Sainz P4, Lando P5 now, just ahead of Giovinazzi, but a mega fight between all 3 of these guys there. Obviously Sainz and Norris, 2 championship rivals from last season, and Leclerc obviously was in the championship fights previously in seasons 2 and season 3, probably would have been there in season 4 if it wasn't for that engine nerf, but now Ferrari a bit more competitive these days. But Leclerc obviously yet to get a win, as is Carlos Sainz. Those two, surprisingly, even though they're quite high up there in the standings, still yet to get that elusive win, whereas Giovinazzi has, Lando Norris has, and even Gasly and Verstappen have, as well as myself, of course, last episode. But for us then, speaking of us, back to our POV, lap number 5, and you can see my front left tyre is screaming out as we've got yellow flags as Russell is off in the gravel trap. And the Alfa Romeo man is out of this Grand Prix, so that's 1 free position up into P15, but the tyres are really hurting. So as I said and alluded to, it's an easy one stop, but also at the same time, you don't know how the tyres are going to react, especially the soft tyres, on the temperature. And so I honestly might have to bail earlier onto some hard tyres, because we're losing so much time. I'm getting so much understeer with that tyre becoming so hot on the front left, to the point where we've caught up to Mashasita, but we've taken a lot longer than I thought we would to catch up to the Alpine car, who's a lot slower than our car on the R&D chart. And even my team maybe asked me to change strategy, so I think I may honestly go for an earlier pit stop onto hard tyres, and hopefully I can lean on those tyres a bit more, like we have done in a few other races where we've had tyre temperature issues. The hard compound actually becomes then a very good raceable tyre when you have those kind of temperature issues. But for now, our car's very much been in the wars, as you can see on that right-hand side, with all the debris and the kind of damage on the side pods. There's been really kind of in the mix of it, getting the elbows out. Now we're tucked up behind Sergio Perez, who's been overtaken by Albon. So Albon carving his way through this midfield here, but still, even he's finding it hard to recover, and he was starting in, P12, as we now slip it down the inside. And I'm not going to lie, that was a bit of a hairy moment. That was a bit of an on-edge move there, because we did kind of have to extend the track a little bit across the curb, but forcing our way through on the inside there to Sergio Perez, because we basically can't dawdle. I need to be getting through these guys and getting that clean air, crucially, to chase after the top 10 pack. And we actually surprisingly catch up to Albon very quickly. I think he actually has an issue. I think my engineer told me at some point in this previous lap he has some sort of mechanical issue. So a bit of a shame for him, as he's been recovering in this race quite well. But now he's clearly got an issue, because he's so slow off that corner. We squeeze him out on the left-hand side. He's got DRS open, so he's pretty decent in the straight line, but we cut across him onto the racing line, and we make that overtake look pretty damn easy, and what is a pretty damn quick Racing Point car. And now we close up to the other second Alpine of the afternoon of Danica Fiat. Can we get him into turn 1 maybe, as we try and find the traction, swing through the final bend using some ERS. We go across to a brand new lap, then towards Village, looking to maybe make a move, sizing one up to the inside, maybe use a bit more ERS through up that hill, down the inside we go, hit the apex, squeeze him out, open up the steering wheel, and it's a textbook move down the inside there of Village, and we're up into P11. Now, though, we've got a good gap, over 3 seconds there, and that's actually quite a lot in terms of this track and how good the AI are. So it's going to take us a while to actually close it up. Lap 10, Gasly is coming in on this lap, so he's even coming in early. So I wouldn't be surprised if Gasly's also coming in onto hard tyres. But look at my tyres on that bottom right heads-up display. Both the tyres are yellow on the internal carcass temperatures. The understeer was so large. So we go one more lap and we come in, and it's the same lap as Bottas and a few others actually to as well. So maybe a few others are also going onto hards. Gasly's definitely on hards. You can see that on the top left. Hamilton onto mediums. So it looks like we've got a few people confident enough on the tyre temperatures that are going to go onto medium tyres. But I'm gonna firm it. We're going to go onto hard tyres. We can't hack it. Our car, seems like the My Team car, it's just a little bit harsher on his tyres. It races like these where the internal temperature just can't be controlled too much. So we need the hard tyres to lean on a little bit more, whereas it looks like everyone around us pretty much is onto mediums. So that's really quite annoying that every other AI car seems way more comfy with the tyre temp. So even Bottas ahead of us on the mediums. We're out now, P14. Aitken continues on the soft compound tyre. Lap 12 then, so still a long way to go in this Grand Prix. But in terms of action for us, it's going to be about catching Bottas. And then after him, I don't know really, honestly, because there's too big of a gap then. But in the end then, Verstappen still leads the way in this second stint on mediums. Confirmation there, Gasly in second on the hard tyres. Third place right now is Leclerc, who's got away from Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz. So he's doing a good job to solidify that third place on mediums. And he's actually looking likely to maybe close up to Gasly, you know. He's looking quite close to him now. And Norris has dropped Sainz. And Sainz now is not looking like, you know, he's pressurising Norris at all. It's looking like he's actually been pressurised by the car behind him, Giovinazzi. So Sainz, after looking so quick at the start of this race, is falling away on those medium tyres. Red Bull losing pace. Obviously, Ricciardo's been nerfed at this entire Grand Prix at the start. And now Sainz falling away. And now, a few laps later, this is Leclerc finishing a move for P2 there. So the Ferrari man flying high. Gasly down to P3 now. Meanwhile, on the same lap, on the same straight, deja vu there as Giovinazzi makes a similar move on the outside of Carlos Sainz. So the Ferraris are speeding up in this one, and Sainz and Red Bull have definitely lost pace. Gasly might be losing some pace on the hard tyres. Obviously, myself and him are the only guys in this race. On hards, it seems like. So, apart from Ricciardo as well behind us. So, you know, those guys on mediums, they're quicker because of the medium compound tyre, and also they've not got tyre temperature issues, so they're kind of doubly fine in that kind of way. But for us now, tucked up behind Valtteri Bottas, couldn't quite make a move into that last chicane. Lap 14, it's going to be a personal best lap time, I believe. Ooh, just about a little bit slower there in the final sector, so Bottas holding up somewhat, and we just can't quite make the move on that lap, which I was surprised at, but again, that may just be the hards versus the mediums on the AlphaTauri here. But we now open up the DRS, and we're going to fly by this time. Look at the overspeed there once we're a little bit closer, and we've also got ERS to deploy, rich mix there, and we're up into P10, so we're finally, after 15 long laps, into the points paying positions for one championship point. Now, to be fair, with the season, how close it is, 1 point like this could be very important. You know, in a race like this, where we're facing adversity, you know, having a damage limitation like this, being able to still come back for 1 point could be very important for the championship. You just don't know. But at the moment, Gasly is struggling on those hards, and he's falling even further back as it's a brilliant move down the inside of Copse, and Lando Norris is up into third place. So it's Verstappen who's dominating this one from pole to, as it stands right now, lap 16. Leclerc second place, Norris in third now, and Gasly down to P4. And then you've got Giovinazzi who's pulling away from Carlos Sainz. And then you've got further back, Lance Stroll. He was looking quite quick in this Grand Prix previously, but Ocon now is speeding up. So both McLarens are looking a little bit quicker. Ocon can't quite make a move there into Stowe that time, but can he now do it again on the very next lap? Let's see. And this is actually Norris, sorry, the other McLaren now, looking back at the top fight here, and he's not only gone and overtaken Gasly, he's now looking to overtake Leclerc again, just like Ocon though. He gets closed off on the left-hand side, but both McLarens are now really heating up here, and the highest Brit in this Grand Prix, Norris, looking to get up onto the second step of the podium if he can. DRS this time, and this time he's got the speed to carve his way through on the left-hand side, and he's up into P2. It's a fabulous overtake. It's a good amount of pace there for him, and also Ocon, I think, who's also managed to maybe get Stroll as well. I think, yeah, he has. You can see on the top left there, lap 23, Ocon is passed, and he's up into P8. Stroll somehow still holding the pass after the Grand Prix, but down to P9, but there's a sizable 14.2 second gap. You know, that's so far away. So we really are just settling down for this as now we watch on, and it's Ocon v Hamilton now. So Ocon is continuing his pace and his charge up the order. He's now close up to Hamilton. He's going right around the outside of him at Luffield. It's a fantastic move for him. That is crazy. On the outside of the field, it's now going to be 3 wide into the old turn 1, and this is not going to end well. And Hamilton, he's faced some contact. He's got major damage on the front wing. I think Albon also sustained some damage, and once again, Hamilton is dealt some bad luck in a race here. He was going to score maybe a second. He's going to be another race with more points. Maybe not the 10 points he gained at Austria, but now It's a calamity once again. What is it with Hamilton, man? Ever since 2 seasons ago, he's got no luck anymore in this game. And now Albon and Hamilton come in because they're damaged. Even though it's so late in the Grand Prix, their teams think it's worthwhile coming in for some reason. Even though we've got 2 laps. If I was them, I would just limped home with the damage. And so that's going to play into our hands. So never say never in Formula 1. Never give up. Even if your race is so dull, keep pushing hard. Never give up because you never know. And so here we are, lap 25. 2 laps to go, and we overtake 2 cars there of Stroll and Hamilton there. And we're up into P8 somehow. That's bonkers. I would not have pictured us getting P8 looking at that gap of 14 seconds ahead to Ocon at the time, was it? And so here he is, Ocon making that great move, but oh, so unlucky there. I think, to be honest, Stroll, he really had no business sending his nose in. Yes, he had the overspeed. He was deploying ERS all the way down this straight to get alongside Hamilton, but I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe he did have a lot of speed, so maybe he did have a right to be there. Maybe Hamilton should be the one to kind of back out of that, but very much a racing incident, I feel. But in the end of it then, on the last lap, rounding the final bend, Max Verstappen comes through to win the British Grand Prix. It's his 2nd win of the season, and Mercedes' 2nd ever win ever since, like, season, what was it, 3 or 2? I don't even know. But, yeah, it's been a long time since that first race of the season to see Verstappen on the top step. And for us, I mean, from where we were last, spun around facing the opposite way on the first lap of the Grand Prix to recover to P8 in such a competitive grid, I will very much take P8 here at the home Grand Prix. But again, just a bit of a bogey circuit for us. And the man that's shining today is Max Verstappen.
That's the race win. That is the race win. He absolutely bossed it. Magic today. Absolutely bossed it. Fantastic.
We did this as a team, guys. Unbelievable. What a race. Oh, I loved it. Thank you, guys. Great day.
Fail 84, please, Max. Fail 84.
Plenty of action here at Silverstone. It was a memorable race, and what an impressive victory. Tell me, Ant, how do you think they were able to deliver such an incredible result today?
I feel like consistency was probably the key today. There's being quick, and then there's being quick lap after lap after lap. If you can do that, you can capitalise on other people's errors without making many of your own. And that's an approach that can push you a long way up the field.
So after a magnificent race, we can now see the drivers making their way to the podium. Once again, it's the Silver Arrows who take top spot. A well-earned victory for Mercedes.
So Mercedes very much being carried by Verstappen because Hamilton, I think, scores either no points or just 1 point there. So Verstappen is really single-handedly scoring all their points this season and trying his best to carry them into that kind of mid-pack fight with the likes of the McLaren and Racing Point. It was a very good race of the McLarens. They both sped up so much at the end there, and I was very surprised to see Norris come back from what was effectively P5 all the way up to P2, Leclerc P3. A little bit disappointed in the whole team as a whole. Myself and Gasly falling away with some pace on the hard tyres, although to be fair, we gained with that crash, so we got quite lucky at the end there. But yet again, just a very unfortunate home Grand Prix for us. It really is just unlucky for us on this year's game. We're just going to have to maybe accept that we're never going to have a good race at this circuit, really. But we're still 1-2 in the championship, but Gasly now retakes the lead, and there's a few points to us now. But we've, done the best job I think we can. Gasly falling away at the end, and us gaining that P8, that's the max damage limitation we could have hoped for there, to be honest, for us. And everyone else keeps it as close as possible in the Constructors and the Drivers' Championship. But guys, if you did enjoy that race, a pretty good recovery, and then I guess you could say, hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.